How was the sound yesterday? It was only bad in the beginning, or was it bad the whole time?
It's choppy the whole time.
The whole time. No, I hope it's better today.
It's great
We'll
right now.
out. Okay, then it's good. It was bad yesterday right away in the beginning. Good morning. With the help of Hashem, we are learning Yerushalmi, Demai, Perek Zayin, Halacha Dalet. We're learning Daf Samach Tes. We're starting 5 lines from the top of the Amid. We had yesterday in the Mishnah, the Stam Mishnah, which we now know is only the Shita of Rabbi Meir, that allows for a person who buys, in the case of the Mishnah, wine from Kutim, even though it's already Bein Hashmashes, a person still then, even by Tevel, is allowed to make the type of Tanai that we generally began with in the beginning of this Perek, by him declaring that which he will in the future separate, and the future refers to Dafka after Shabbos. So he speaks about the 2 lug from the 100 will be Truma Gedolah, and the subsequent, etc., etc., etc. And then he can drink the wine. Of course, he must make sure that the quantity that is needed to be designated or to be identified after Shabbos as Trumos Omaisis, that of course he must leave over, but then he can consume the wine over Shabbos. The Gemara brought a Braisa, a Tosefta, that says that our Mishnah Zu only Divrei Rabbi Meir, but Rabbi Yossi and Rabbi Shimon Oimrim, that such a statement won't be okay. And why? Shema Tibaka Hanoit. Because the barrel, the wineskin, the bottle might crack. The wine won't be there, Matzah Shabbos, to be identified and separated for Trumas Umaisris. And if at the end you won't separate Trumas Umaisris, then Lima Freya, retroactively, what you consumed on Shabbos was Tevel. So because of that chashash, you're not allowed to rely on it. We learned yesterday that really this chashash is something, let's say, a little bit far-fetched, right? It's loy shchiach. Really, there has to be other reasons why Tanoim would argue with Rav Meir. And indeed, Rabbi Yossi has a reason, Rabbi Shimon has a reason. The way we explained the sugya, the reason why the Braisa didn't quote their primary reasons is because Rabbi Yossi and Rabbi Shimon don't have the same primary reason. The Braisa quoted the reason, Taka only secondary, that they both agree upon, which is Shema Tibaka Hanoit. Okay, now that's where we left off. Now, it's secondary, but it's a reason. The Braisa says that there is a chashash, Shema Tibaka Hanoit. What we're going to have on Daf Samach Tes is that the Gemara is going to bring a Mishnah from Mesechtas Gittin. In Bavli, it's going to be Gittin Daf Lamed Aleph. It appears from that Mishnah that we do not have this chashash, Shema Tibaka Hanoit. We obviously can also say, yeah, the Mishnah in Gittin is also only Rabbi Meir, Rabbi Yossi, and Rabbi Shimon would argue we always prefer not to do that. And the Gemara indeed will explain how the Mishnah in Gittin can go even according to Rabbi Yossi and Rabbi Shimon. And let me make these following statements that will be explained when we learn the Gemara inside. And these are very foundational principles, that there's something called a chazaka de me'ikara, which is also connected to the case of the barrel of wine. Chazaka de me'ikara means that I leave something, I see something the way it is, I have the right to presume that it is still the way it used to be. Since we established something to be good, just an example, by mikvah, right? Let's say you check a mikvah, and the mikvah has the right quantity of memsa, just as an example. And many people go to the mikvah. You checked it on Sunday, people used it Sunday, people used it Monday, people used it Tuesday. Let's say you check the mikvah on Wednesday, and there's a problem, just as an example. So are we going to say that what? That it only became not good now? Or, if it's not good now, it was already not good until a moment after I checked it previously.
Eruv. We do that with the Eruv too, right?
With everything. Chazaka de Mikara means that even when you find a problem now, okay, halachically, the problem began a moment before you found it. Why? Because since when I checked it before, if the chazaka was good, leave good for as long as you could. What the example that I'm giving will not be used today in the Gemara. I just want to explain in the words of introduction the meaning of a chazaka de meikar. Now, let me go to my mikveh case. When you check the mikveh on Sunday, you did not check it on Wednesday yet, right? there is no competing, but now it's not good. There's no chazaka dahashta that's competing against the chazaka de meikara. There it's easy. Yeah, since you're putting your tefillin today. How do you know your tefillin is kosher? Because you checked it last Elul, or you checked it this chayder, you checked it. If you don't know that it's bad, you schlep the established chazaka to where? Here's the question. Are you able to use the original chazaka for the present? The answer is for sure. Or can you even extend it into the future? That will be the nuance, the lumdis that we're going to have in the first part of today's sugya. That chazaka de mikara could determine the present, only the present. But we will never allow a chazaka de mikara halachically to establish something that's beyond the present. That's a gavaldic idea. It's not that common. Now, I don't remember this. Doesn't mean much, but whatever that means, that's going to be the first big discussion today. And the next big discussion today is going to move on to another topic. We'll see how it's linked to our sugya. That's going to be dinim of Hilchos Me'ila. For the Loimde Gimel Prakim Rambam, we're not that far off it. All right, we're learning Tavshin Pei Dalid, the end of Tavshin Pei Dalid. And the Bekitzit, Me'ila means that if something is consecrated to the Beis HaMikdash, even if it's only to the Berek HaBayis, it may not be used for anything other than Beis HaMikdash usage. If a person used it, misappropriated it, now really there's nuances that are not negated to today's sugya. There is having hana'ah. I can have hana'ah without devaluing it. There's another me'ilah. I devalued it. Remember? Then we learned our kalim that become devalued when you use them, right? The Rambam uses that in the beginning. Then you have kalim like gold, for example. The beauty of gold is that no matter how much you use it, it doesn't corrode. You're not devaluating it, but you had the hana. That won't be directly negated to our sugya. Just the general concept of me'ilah. And the rule is that if a person misappropriated temple property inadvertently, b'shoigeg, so the din is, number one, there's a financial penalty, which means not only do they have to pay to the Beis HaMikdash the value of what they benefited thereof, but they have to add on it a halachic fifth. There is a asham, which is going to be the focus of today's share. There's a carbon called asham me'ilas. An asham that's called asham me'ilas. Now, I know in English, an asham is called a guilt offering. A chatas is called a sin offering. A chatas is brought when a person sinned b'shoigeg. An asham isn't only brought when a sin is done b'shoigeg. There are other ashamis, right? There are 5 ashamis. Some of them are brought for sins that are done b'mezid. Regardless, what's going to happen if a person has a doubt if they violated something for which the chayv an asham? The definition of achatos is if a person violated the sin, they have a doubt if they violated the sin for which if they did it b'mezid, they're going to be chayv kares. As an example, simcha, chaylev, which are the fats of a domesticated animal, even though it was slaughtered kahalach, chaylev, its consumption is a graver violation than chazid. Amazing. For chazid, God forbid, you get malchus. For chaylev, you chayv kares. That's a good example. So if a person had in front of them 2 pieces of meat, and one of them was chaylev, one of them was shuman, and they ate one of them, what did they bring? They bring an asham talui, right? If a person ate chaylev and they know they ate chaylev, but when they ate it, they didn't know. What did they bring? A chatos. In other words, a carbon chatos is brought if a person did an act while he or she did it, they did not know that they're sinning. Later, they know that what they did was a lav sheyesh by kares. That will be generally the reason to bring a carbon chatos. What happens, Yakid, if a person did something which demands a asham, like in our case, but it's not like they discovered later, I was moyel behegdish. Later they say, I don't know, maybe I was moyel behegdish or not. So do you bring an asham talui in such a case? That is a machloikis between Rabbi Akiva and the Chachamim. Rabbi Akiva, the Das Yachid holds that you bring an asham talui. Now, of course, if prior to bringing the asham talui you discovered that you indeed were moil, then you only bring an asham ilois. Shitas Rabbi Akiva isn't only benegea asham ilois; it's benegea any asham. The person did something, and later they realized that they might have done something for which the chayv and asham badai, Rabbi Akiva holds, they have to bring an asham talui. That's going to be the general rule. There's going to be a certain Mishnah. The Mishnah is going to say one case. I'll just say the words, and we'll learn it inside. If a person says pruta bakis ze hegdish, and the person has many prutos in their pocket, they didn't identify which one. Rabbi Akiva says that if you spend the first one, you're chayev a asham talui, because maybe you took out the one that was designated for hegdish. Maybe you were moil. There's going to be another Mishnah that says pruta min hakiz hegdish. Rabbi Akiva holds you're only chayiv and asham me'ilois vadai when you spent the last pruta. If you spent the second to last, the third to last, whatever, anyone prior to the last, you don't even have to bring an asham talui. Rabbi Shlakish has two questions on this Mishnah that he asked to Rabbi Yechanan, and one of them is going to be directly linked to our sugya. How far into the responses of Rabbi Yechanan to Rish Lakish we'll see, but that's mamish a kitzir of Daf Samachtes in Yerushalmi. Okay. So, we are in 5 lines from the top, by the dot. Rabbi Yossi and Rabbi Shimon explicitly say, parenthetically, a secondary reason, but they say that there is a chashash, shema tibaka hanoid. So the Gemara wonders whether Tamon, Tanina, we learned the Mishnah in Gittin and Babli, it's Gittin Daf Lamed Aleph. And the Mishnah is speaking about Hamaniach, Peiros, Lias, Matrash Aleim, Truma, Umaisrois. A person, this is simple. Let's say I have in my house, have a pile of grain. And I'm going on a trip. Marshall, I'm going on a trip. And I want to facilitate when I travel in Eretz Yisrael, not like today, you can't just buy food. Every time I'm going to buy wheat, I'm going to have to separate Trumas Umaisros. Then I have to have where to keep it. I'm not going with the coin. So a person can tell themselves, you know what I'm going to do? The pile that I have in my house, all of it, I'm leaving to be used in the future as Trumas Umaisros for this product that I'm going to buy over the next month, just when I'm traveling. Now, the emes is, I'm saying words that we don't have to fully understand right now. By Truma, there is a halacha that you can only be mafresh min hamukaf. So this type of separation will only be good b'di'evet. And indeed, the Rashi writes over there in Babli Gittin, that could be the Mishnah speaking about someone who's doing things for a b'di'evet. There's a Tosfos that says that there are some scenarios that this should be used lechatchila. It's not negated to get into it right now, but that's the case. The case is a person has peiros, whether peiros means fruits, whether it means produce, it doesn't matter. Person has an item, and instead of eating that item after separating the Trumas Umaisros, he says to himself, I'm leaving all of it here. I have 10 pounds. Now I have 10 pounds worth that for the next period of time, whenever I'm going to buy this type of peta, the pile in my house, I'm going to say that what I owe Truma is designated in the pile. What I owe Maisres is designated in the pile. You understand? Then when we'll come home, the whole pile will be Trumas Umaisros. That's the case over there. Or, very similar, a person has a bundle of money. He has a purse of money. As you buy produce during the years, 4 out of the 7, you have to separate at the end Meiser Sheni. Meiser Sheni classically was mechulal, was deconsecrated on money. I don't want to have to schlep the money I have on me. But again, parenthetically, nowadays, you don't need the real value of money to be paid the Meiser Sheni with. You can be paid $1 million of prut as Meiser Sheni on a coin of a pruta. Actually, that is the way it's done today. That's based on the sheet of Shmuel that says regarding Hegdish, that when you're paid the Hegdish, you don't have to be paid the Hegdish on money of its same value, because when the issue is only to remove Kedusha, it's a qualitative issue, not a quantitative issue. And that's why the Rambam Taka Paskins that nowadays Meiser Sheni, you're going to redeem on just a pruta, on one coin. However, some people didn't do that. Some people, especially when the Beis Hamikdash stood, or when we actually were able to eat Ma'aser Sheni. So if I had $10 worth of Ma'aser Sheni, I needed $10 plus a choimish in my pocket to redeem the Ma'aser Sheni upon. So this guy is doing the same thing. He has a kiss. He has a pile of money in his home. Obviously, he knows that no one will take the money. If not, how can you do that? And he's in his mind saying, I'm leaving the money here. So every time over the next period that I'm going to be paid Ma'aser Sheni, it will be on this money. What's the issue over here? Says the Mishnah that the issue is maybe when you go on your trip, maybe rodents ate up your paytas. Maybe the kinderlach ate up your paytas. Maybe your neighbor ate up your paytas. There was a fabrengen, money, many more scenarios where someone borrowed the money. Like, how do you know that the paytas are dear? How do you know? And really, this is very much like the Shama Tibaka Hanoit. And nevertheless, the Mishnah says that such a thing is valid. Mafresh aleim, you can use it because you rely on the chazaka. When you left your house, the paytas were there. When you left the house, the money was there. So mafresh aleim becheska shehem kayamim. It's a very good point. So the Gemara is asking, will we say that Mishnah is only Rav Meir, which wouldn't be the end of the world, but we prefer not to have to say that. Will it come out that Mishnah is the like Rabbi Yossi, not like Rab Shimon? In other words, how do you know it's going to be there? Shama Tibaka HaNoid. Yeah, the Noid is just an example. Rabbi Yossi and Rab Shimon say, you can't do that because at the end, Shama Tibaka HaNoid. Well, the same thing. Wouldn't they argue based on Shama Tibaka HaNoid with this Mishnah? Gavaldik, right. So Amar Rab Ze'eda, no, they would agree with it. Why? That's the big difference. Tamon lemafreyoi niskalkalu. If in the future the wineskin would crack in the future, then lemafreya, everything that you consumed will become tevel. What allows Rav Meir, aside of the principle of Breda, to do what it says in this halacha dalid? Because Rav Meir is presuming that since the wineskin is intact, now it will remain intact in the future, which is Matzah Shabbos, when you're going to actually make the identification and the physical separation. Rav Meir subscribes to that. Rabbi Yossi and Rab Shimon say that if something is here right now, and then let's say Sunday and Monday, you want to know whether it's still there, you can say on Monday it's still there. Since it was there yesterday, it's still here right now. But in our Mishnah, you're not using it to establish what's here right now. You're not saying on Shabbos, when I'm drinking it, that it's here right now. That you know. You're using the fact that there was a wineskin right now as a halachic presumption it's going to be here in the future. That's something they disagree with. A chazaka de me'ekara, or even a cheskas hashta, cannot determine the future. Actually, it's vadai that at some point in the future, everything will deteriorate. The only question is when. And that's unlike Baram Hacha. I know the word Hacha normally would mean here in the Mai, but the word Hacha goes to the Hacha.
But Rabbi, see, according to all of them, they don't have any probability cap of an item that you know for sure it's going to last until such and such.
No. Even according
to Rabbi Yossi and Rabbi Meir.
No, Yakir, we're not talking about the shelf life of the product. We're talking.
I understand.
Shema Tebak Hanoid is not. Shema Tebak is not shchiach. Nevertheless, as a secondary, we're just focusing on that. We're saying that something out of the ordinary will happen, and it's going to crack. Now, I'm going to argue that it will be Yakir out of the ordinary, loy shchiach, for my wineskin to crack over the next 24 hours. But let me tell you something. At some point over the next 200 years, my wineskin will not exist. That's not extraordinary. So it's the moment I'm trying to project in the future, I'm already with a problem, because in the future, for sure, it's not going to remain forever. Now, the question is, when will that happen? Masha'en came, if I'm looking at the present only, Everyone will agree. Even Rabbi Yossi and Rabbi Shimon will say that if I saw something yesterday and I want to know what's now, I'm allowed to say until I know otherwise, now it's still the way it was. Let's read it inside. In other words, only from when it gets lost and further do we have a problem. But the question is not when I'm leaving in my home a pile of fruit and now I'm in a store, or the way Tosfos says it's Erev Shabbos and I don't have enough time to be mafresh begashmi is, that is where lechatchila I should be mafresh it, even though Choloim and Amukaf, it's a good scenario. At that moment, I'm not at home. I don't see what's happening in my home, but my judgment is only for the present. I know that in the future, at some point, it's going to get destroyed. I'm not denying that. My question is, where am I holding right now? If I'm only judging the right now, that is where I rely on what it used to be. I think this is gewaldic. I think, I think, but
Can I just make sure I understand this?
Yes, Hadani.
So is it that about with the wine, the actual tithing has not actually occurred? And therefore, if the wine skin split, then retroactively, you always had tevel.
That's correct.
Whereas in this case,
one second, Danny,
tithing is happening.
But one second, you have to add. And when I want to drink it on Shabbos, I'm saying that since it's intact now, it's going to still be intact in the future.
Okay.
That's where Rabbi Yossi and Rabbi Shimon say, how do you know? It's intact now. Very good.
But by the pile of fruits,
when I pile of fruits
intact now.
When I'm using it, Danny, not when I'm leaving my home. Not when I'm leaving my home. I left my home, but now when I'm using it, I'm not home. My question is, did something happen to it now, or until now, or is it still the way it was? A chazaka, the meikara, allows me to say that until I know otherwise, right now it is the way it used to be.
So if it is, then right now I can allocate fruits from that pile to be the tithes of my produce that I have right here.
You're saying good.
Me.
Even if it gets destroyed, I didn't need tevel. Beautiful.
Because it was misakin. It's like any case where the truma gets lost.
The Kohen's lost, the Levi's lost. Okay.
So if I separate truma, just to know, on my produce, and it's sitting on the side of my house, I haven't given it to the Kohen yet.
Yep.
But I'm already, the rest of my produce is considered being misakin, that
100%.
now I can use it. And if that gets destroyed or something, that's the Kohen's loss. Or
the only reason why in our series of Mishnayos, and at least from Halacha Beis, and we're going to see soon Halacha Hey, it's not that case, because since you're not allowed to be Toidim Mafresh on Shabbos and Yom Tov, Itaka did not tithe it yet. I am the chiddush here is that since I will tithe it later, and if you subscribe to the principle of Breira, so that's the chiddush. That allows me to consume it right now. It's kamoy chulin. We read this word a few daf ago in the Maraful. In your case, Danny, when I mafresh it, even though I didn't give it to the kohen, it's chulin gomer. Here, the chiddush, it's a leniency that Chazal said it's kamoy chulin. Because since when I'll do it, it will go retroactive, I can rely on it right now. But if I don't do it, retroactively, it's tevel gomer. Not kamoy tevel. The fear of a change in the future is not a fear, it's a fact. We just don't know when. Masha'enkin, if you're looking on the present, Ba'asher hu sham has a good lamdish drasha to really put people to sleep on Rosh Hashanah with Yishmael and Gavaldik. Ich hab schon a whole drasha, like to really kill all of the darshana. But the guys, they get up there and they have this whole lamdis, and they get excited to hear the shofar, the hustud. Yeah. Mamish, in other words, that Yishmael, there we knew he's going to sin. It's amazing. But right now he's a tzaddik. The future doesn't extend back. The bad future does not extend to the present. The good past extends to the present. the good past and the bad future clash somewhere, and we don't know exactly where. That's where the issue is. Okay, let's go back. Now we're moving on to Hilchos Me'in. So as we spoke out in our words of introduction, let me go right away to the case, and then you'll read it. Then we'll read it. Then we'll just speak it out again. Now we're going to what we have in Bavli Me'ila Daf Chaf Aleph. Again, it's a Mishnah. Taman Taninan. We'll see soon. Now there's a stretch to connect this and that. So we have to completely put this on the shelf, and we're going into a whole different topic for a moment. We learned a Mishnah in Masechtas Me'ila. If a person makes the following statement, Pruta shall heg, two cases. There are two cases in the Reisha, and there's one case in the Sefer. The first case in the Reisha we never spoke about yet in the words of introduction, but we're going to speak about it right now. Pruta shall hegdish naflu l'toichakis. A person has a pocket, a person has a purse in which there are many prutois of chulin, into which falls a pruta of hegdish. Now, are there many or are they only one? Is it one and one? We're going to address that soon. This is the first chalukah of the Reisha. This is the first case of the Reisha. Second case of what we're going to call the Reisha. Oi, the person says that pruta bakis hazeh is hegdish. The guys, every word is meduyak b'yosef. Pruta ba with a base. Pruta bakis hazeh hegdish, and the person never specified which pruta. Now the Gemara in Yerushalmi that expects everyone to know all of the Mishnayos Baal Peh doesn't even have to speak out like in the Bavli, the rest of the Mishnah, since we don't know. So let's go read inside the Pnei Moshe. And we have to do that, and we have to go move a little bit quicker. So guys, we are in the second widest line in the Pnei Moshe. See that, Simcha? The Pnei Moshe already under the Marafut, the second line. We're going to go all the way to the bottom of the Amid in the Pnei Moshe. Tamon Taninon, we learned over there, B'Seif Masechtas Me'ila. Pruta shel hegdish naflu l'toichkis. Case number one, Chalukah number one. Oisha Omar, Pruta bakizeh hegdish. If a person said, Kivin shohoitzi harushoina l'tzoyda chulan. Here are the words of the Mishnah. If a person then put his hand into this kiss and they took out one pruta and they spent it for themselves, ma'al. And as I'll tell you right now, ma'al doesn't mean asham me'ilois. Ma'al means an asham talui, and that's only the sheet of Rabbi Akiva that holds that if there is an act that you do for which you're chayiv and asham, in our case, if you were to take the pruta shel hegdish and spend it for you, you would have to bring an asham me'ilois. Forget about the money penalty, just asham me'ilois. Holds Rabbi Akiva that if you did an act and you have a suffix, maybe I was moil, maybe not, until when you find out, you have to bring the classic asham talu. That's the meaning of the ma'al divini Rabbi Akiva. The chachamim no. You're only moil if you spend the whole kiss. Why? Because the chachamim disagree with Rabbi Akiva. They hold that for a suffix, whether you are chayiv in any asham, in our case, an asham me'ilois, for that suffix, there is no asham talui. There is no asham talui. An asham talui is only brought if you have a suffix, whether you did something for which zedoinoi kares, right? When you have, and there has to be chazik isura, when you have the chelev and the shuman, and I ate something until when I find out. If I find out, I bring a chatos. Before I find out, an asham talui. Here, if I find out, I don't bring a chatos. If I find out, I bring a korban asham me'ilois. There's no ash. So when are you chayiv a korban? Only when you know you were moil. When you spend all the korban. Now let's go weiter. Umoide Rabbi Akiva ba'omer. And when a person says, now I'm calling this the sefer, min hakis ze hegdish. The min hakis ze hegdish is in contrast with the second case of the Reisha. First case of the Reisha was a prut of hegdish fell into a kiss. There's no contrast with that. The other option is nothing fell into the kiss. But here we're speaking about the second case in the Reisha where he said, pruta bakis ze hegdish creates a suffix on all the prutais. Really, there's a nuance. We'll see soon on the Pnei Moshe. Asham tali. But if he says not pruta bakise, but if he says that pruta min hakis hazeh hegdish, then he can spend, even according to Rabbi Akiva, all the prutais, only the last one will then be the one that he meant when he said pruta bakiza hegdish, and then if he spends it, he's chayiv ashama ilois vada. Prior to that, there isn't even a suffix. Vada, his statement did not include the coins before. And the Gemara later is going to explain. Let's see how far we get. The reason of Rabbi Akiva. Guys, keep your finger in the Pnei Moshe and Tan. So that's the mission. Now here we go. Tani, we learned in a Braisa, clarifying the Mishnah. We already spoke it out on the Pnei Moshe. We just spoke it out. Then when Rabbi Akiva says, "Kiven shohoitzi harushoina," but soy chulin ma'al. Rabbi Akiva did not mean that if you spent one, you chayv mal asham elis. He did not mean that. Braisa al harushoina would mean until the last one. We'll read this in the Pnei Moshe. Besafik asham tali. Look inside the Pnei Moshe. Tani lo b'tisefta. Where in the end of the Sefta Meila. Now the Pnei Moshe is quoting it that pruta shel hegdish. That's the case of the Reisha, where there are two cases, right? Either pruta shel hegdish that fell into the kiss, or a person said pruta bakis ze hegdish. Kiven shahoitzi etzor shoyim. Maybe what asham talui. Ve'es ashniya maybe asham vadai. Ashniya means the last one. Divrei Rabbi Akiva. So it's more elaborate in this after. Now, says the Pnei Moshe, Va'al ha'omer pruta bakize hegdesh misparsha habraisa. The following is only going on the second case of the Reish. When the Gemara says over here, what are we talking about? Right? We are talking about the case of Pruta Bakiza Hegdish. Rabbi Akiva the timing. The guy said all in the Pnei Moshe. The Sfirale, and he quotes Perikei the Krisus L'chayiv al Safik Me'ilois on any Safik Me'ilois. Rabbi Akiva holds you have to bring an Asham Tolu. Al Ashni Ashamal Bevadai Shum the Achaluka Sho'amar. The Pnei Moshe is making a big point. The Reish has two cases. Either a Pruta of Hegdish fell in. We're not talking about that right now. We're only talking about the stanza where in the Reisha, where he used the base. When he says Pruta Bakis Hegdish Koyim, the word Bakis in means not on top, inside. Mashma betoy chakis. And theoretically, therefore, if the words Bakis means something that's within it is Hegdish, theoretically, the first one is not toy chakis mikre, shi'alamayla. So, in other words, the question is, if we are interpreting bakis means something that's in, excluding the periphery, the top, then why can't you even spend the top? You should be able, even according to Rabbi Akiva, to spend the top and be Shalom al Yisrael. No, that not. Ella, because there's a doubt, there's a chashash. Maybe it got mixed. Shema batchila, it was b'toy chakis. What's on the top now was when you made your vow was inside, and now it came to the top. All explaining why you're bringing Asham Tov. Aval Ashniya, Shoitzim b'toy chakis, mal bevadai, or maybe Asham ilois vadai. So what the Pnei Moshe is saying, that when it says in the Braisa that al Rishoina suffix al Ashniya vadai, you know what the Shniya means? Not the last one. Doesn't even have to mean the last one. That when you know for sure that what you spend was in the kiss, anywhere in your vadai ma. 1 second. Chachamim sabri. The call happens a bahen ella safik meir. Maybe he meant the last. Maybe not. We don't know which one he meant. Oi. Now let's go to the Reisha of the Reisha, where the Mishnah spoke about a prut of hegdes that fell into the kiss. Same thing. You don't know which one it is. So at best there is a doubt. At best, the Chachamim are not worried about a doubt. Oy pruta shel hegdish nafla. Maybe the one that fell in. Maybe now it's all the way in the bottom. In other words, when you're spending it, you don't know that you're spending the pruta, and therefore va'al kulan malbus when you spend each one separately. And by the way, that's even the last one in the case of the Reisha. When you're asking that was I moil, there's a suffix, and the Chachamim hold for the suffix the ena maybe klum. Because the Sfira Lahu, the Safik Me'ila, Eba Mishum Asham Tali Kidikani. She'ema Viyam Asham Tali V'chuli.
All right, can you
if a
explain the difference
Let
in
me
one
just
sentence?
finish 1 second. Let me just finish. But milvato achrei neshohitzi he shall hagdish shall all bavadi. Even the chachamim hold if you spend all of them, that's what he said. If you spend all of them, for sure one of them was the hagdish that fell in. For sure one of them was the one that you vowed. Then everyone will agree you bring an asham bavadi. Yeah, what are you saying, Kate?
Can you explain the difference in one quick sentence? I'm sorry. Becky say on top, bottom. What's the difference?
When a person says, I'm reading Pruta Bakis Zehegdish, what he's saying is that a Pruta that's inside
Got it.
the pouch is Hegdish. We don't know which one inside. True, he didn't mean the one on the top, but could be when you took out now one from the top, could be it moved around prior to you taking it out, and there's always going to be a doubt. Maybe that's the one that was said. And therefore, when the Mishnah says the words that Ma'al, the Mishnah says the words Ma'al, teaches the Tosefta. Ma'al means until the last one, Ma'al, Asham Talui.
There's a doubt.
Asham Talui. Again, that's only the Rabbi Kiva. Turning to the Samach Tesam with place. But Alashniya, we read these words before inside the Pnei Moshe. This is the words of the Tosefta. Mal bevadai, and all of that is divided Rabbi Kiva. That al kulam means even if you know that the one that you spent was bakis when you made the vow, the chachamim hold that when you say pruta bakis zeh, you didn't mean something that's inside, in the middle, not the top, not the bottom. It could have meant any one. It could have meant the last one. So therefore, and now no one is saying lachatchila you should spend it, but if you did it, there is a doubt, and for a doubt you don't bring any carbon. Valkulam loy ma'al means you don't bring an asham talui, you for sure don't bring an asham vadai because there is a suffix. If you spent all of them, now that you so for sure one of them was, that's what the Pnei Moshe teach. Allah Kreina ma'al bevadai. Now, Rabbi Yudan is coming to clarify something. There are very different ways of how to learn Rabbi Yudan. It's late. Whoever is using an art scroll, we will dafka not explain it the way the art scroll explains it because it's going to go against the whole Pnei Moshe. We're gonna learn it according to the Rash Sirilio, that Rabbi Yudan's statement is coming to clarify Rabbi Akiva. The kids and Nimrods, there are others in Bavli who hold that everything we said right now was subject to our machlokas. What did we say right now? That only Rabbi Akiva subscribes to bringing an asham taloi when there's a suffix if you violated an asham badei, any asham badei. The Chachamim hold you don't. And Rabbi Yudan argues with that, but that makes things more complicated or just different. We don't have enough time to go through both ways. We're going to continue on our journey that everyone is maida to the Yisoid. Rabbi Akiva is the one that holds. You bring an asham talui if you have a suffix, if you violated an asham, any asham, in our case, asham ilois vadai. The Chachamim hold you don't bring it. And we have to therefore learn that Rabbi Yudan, who is the father of Rabbi Matanyam, is clarifying something that has to be said, Lishitas Rabbi Akiva. Hadad the Teimar, only Kishahayu Eser, Avalam Hayu Shtayim, Al Harishoina Safik Mal, Valashnia Mal Bevadai. I know, listen, what he's saying is there's a rule called the Parish Meruba Parish. So even though Rabbi Akiva holds that if you have a suffix, if you violated the Yashami Ilois, you have to bring an Asham Taloi. Okay, but it has to be a halachic suffix. And if we have halachic principles that resolve the suffix, so you don't have a halachic suffix, even Rabbi Akiva will hold, you don't bring an Asham Taloi. So if, for example, let's go to the first case of the Mishnah, where there was a coin that fell into a kiss. So the Mishnah says that al Rishoina, even according to Rabbi Akiva, you're mal. No, says Rabbi Yudan, it must be that there was only one coin prior, kulim. Now fell in one coin of Hegdish. You don't have a roiv. When he says 10, he doesn't mean 10 and not 9. He means it can't be speaking about a case where it's anything less where now you have two. The moment if there was two and now there's three, so then even Rabbi Akiva, who says you bring an Asham Toli, if you have a suffix, if you were moil, why would he say you were moil? When you took out a coin, post facto, you can argue called the punishment of a punish. Look inside the Fedish, look inside the Rashi on the right column, 3 lines from the top. Hadad the Temek Shoyo Esen, the Kivan the Esen Habu, the Chulin, and now the Chad the Hegdish Nafal Luhu, Batil Agabayu. It's batil. V'lei choshet. Ve'en kan safek loimer that dilma hai hu. How much do we need to do a bittul? The Rashi reminds us. Not 10. The Dvar Torah chad betrei batil. And therefore, v'choshet kamoy balul mamish, etc., etc. Okay. Avol, I want to be invited. If there are two after one fell in, he's talking about that case. The then maybe Yasham Talui says that Asherili v'Rabakiva l'taimei demachayev al safik me'ilas Yasham Talui. In other words, Rabbi Yudan is making a clarification. B'shitas Rabbi Akiva, and let's move on. There's a whole different.
He's limiting Rabbi Akiva, right?
Yeah.
So if there's 10 coins, Rabbi Akiva would not say that you do an Asham Talib. It's only when you have 2. That's what he's saying.
Correct. And if there'll be more time. If you have time later, look. The top of name Moshe explains that Rabbi Yudan is clarifying where even the Chachamim will agree to Rabbi Akiva. That changes everything. Okay. Now let's see how far we can get. Now, why are we learning about these dinim over here? Because when this Mishnah was taught to Reish Lakish, he had 2 questions that he asked Rabbi Yechanan. And the second question is based on our sugya. But let's go read it inside. So says the Gemara again, but guys, remember the words. I'm calling this the Reisha and the Seifa. We read it all inside the Mishnah. We read the Mishnah inside the Pnei Moshe. If you want to check it up, you can go back to Amud Aleph, the second line under in the widest lines. If the Reisha is, forget about the case where one fell in. Rabbi Yudin was speaking about it. Now let's focus only on a person made a vow. If he says pruta bakis zehegdish, there Rabbi Akiva says that if you spend even only one asham talui, there's a safek. That's the way we teach. But moed Rabbi Akiva that if you said pruta min kis zehegdish and you spent one, you're not moyel at all. So Rab Shimon ben Lakish ba'a kumei Rabbi Yechanan. What's the difference? Ma beinoimer bikis, ma beinoimer minakis. He wants to get more clarification. What's that diuk lamay nafkemina? Why don't we say in both cases that who says you didn't mean the last one? You meant one, and if you meant one, when you take out one, whether it has to be 1 out of 2, or not everyone has to agree with Rabbi Yudan. It's not the way we learned the Mishnah. What's the difference? Before Rabbi Yechanan answers this question, Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish Omar says the Marafulda 3 lines again under the Gemara. Af zois kushahi shiksheresh Lakish vetarvayu bahadi iksha. He asked 2 questions together, which is why the Gemara doesn't tell you what Rabbi Yechanan answered on the first question. He asked right away another question. And here's the other question. The other question is connected to our sugya. At least, even if we're not going to learn further, it's already 7 o'clock. I just want to get the kesher. What's the second question? Afilu hoitzi es kol hakis lo yimod. In the case of pruta bakiz zehegdish. Why not? Come on, the Tamar, just like we learned in our Mishnah. And then we learned Rabbi Yossi and Rabbi Shimon. And what did they say? That if the wine skin will split, right? Danny, you pointed it out. It's going to come out lemafreya tevel shasam. If you never ended up doing what you set out to do, what did you set out to do? That shnei lugin sha'ani asad lahafnish truma gedoyla, etc., etc. You made a statement of what will you do. If what you said never came to be, Danny, that was the point that Gabi was making before. We don't say, well, what split, what spilled out was the trumas u'maisers of the kohen. You can say that. If shema tebaka hanoid, let it spill on Matzei Shabbos. So what? because you said that you're going to be doing something. And if you never ended up actually identifying it, then your statement was nothing from the outset. So Va'af Uf Hache asks Reish Lakish, why don't we say over here, listen to his logic, that if you end up spending all of the coins, not only should we not say that you now were Moyel Vadai, we should say that if you spent all of the coins, then your statement from the outset is nullified. It never came to fruition. And Lemafreya Chulin Oitzi. Wawi, look inside the Marafulda. 5 lines under the Gemara. Kol Akis Yimal Kama Da'at Amarach Lefeo Shas. V'lo Mamrinan. V'lo Mamrinan. Lemafreya Tevel Shasa. Kiti Bak Anoit. V'lo Koidem Lachain. V'lo Koidem Lachain. V'chi Yesh Lanu Listapik. V'im Yesh Lanu Listapik. After Pruta Rishonik. Moshe Rabbi Akiva. In other words, why don't, if we were to say that if you make a statement that you never end up doing, your statement is still valid, then even if everything spills out, why did you drink tevel? Some of it was truma. You can't say that. Why can't you say that? Because if some of it is truma, maybe what you're eating is truma. So why would he say, let's say in the Sefer, that when a person says, Pruta min kizeh hegdish, Pruta min kizeh hegdish, what does Rabbi Akiva say? That you can have it until the end. Until the end you can spend. Why? Maybe the last one will get lost. Maybe the last one you'll spend for chulin. And then, either, let's say, you're not allowed to spend right now, because if you're going to spend the last one, maybe this is the last one you still have the end. Or let's say that if you never end up spending one for Hegdish, then your whole vow is undone. I know it's a minakotza because your whole vow being undone in our Mishnah means you're drinking tevel. Here we're stretching it. Your whole vow should be undone. Should mean that what? That the whole thing is chulin. I feel like Elavade da filo hachamninim kol anoitim memeno laf truma hi b'chulin shas. The ein achshasha ela l'shema yibak anoit. And if lo yol liafrasha klal, then tevel mafreya. So hachinami guys the marafulda. We push it to the end. The kizeh lo nechash rak lebasoi. Even bakis. No, it's even in the case of pruta bakizeh. Why don't we delay it until the end? You made a statement right now and determine later which one will be Hegdish. To which the Gemara answers, no. That El, according to the Marafulda, that's the answer of Rabbi Yechanan. Elakan, here, meaning here in our Masechta, Toloi Bahafrasha. Look inside the Marafulda, Sha'amar Sha'ani Asid Lahafrish. V'chol ma she'ene mafresh ene truma. There you delay it to the end because the person said that which I will do. He delayed it to the end. So until the end, if not for Shema Tibak Anoid, you can drink it. If Kaki, you didn't do it at the end, then Lamafreya Tevo. Masha'inkin over here, you said, what did you say? You say Pruta Bakizeh now. Pruta Bakiz means you're being mafresh right now. Once you're mafresh right now, you can never undo it. Simple. Elakan toli bafrasha. Over here, not toli bafrasha, because pruta, you said pruta bakiz says hegdish right now. The only question is you don't know which one it is. So if you said pruta bakiz, it could be anyone. So asham talui. If you said pruta min kizeh, that's the first question of it. So it's not anyone. It's only the last one. Why is that? We're already here. Let's read the last. I know we're late. So Amar Rabbi Yoina, this is the way the Marafulda learns. Rabbi Yoina is answering the first question. Kan v'kan ein toli b'afrasha. And therefore, we interpret, you're not saying you're going to do it later. You're doing it now. The difference is, pruta bakizeh is unidentified. We don't know which one. Everyone has a doubt. According to the Pnei Moshe, not the top one. Anything beyond the top one is inside the kiss. When you say pruta min kiss, we interpret, we teach Pruta min kis means nase koimer al yetze hakis hazeh yidei pruta hegdish. What you're saying is that there's no way that the entire kiss will be spent for chulin without the last one being spent for hegdish. That's the way we interpret it. So it's almost as if he said, nase koimer, the last one is hegdish. So if the last one is hegdish, then you can spend everything. Like the Rabbi Kiva, you spend it l'chulin, and if you spend, God forbid, the last one for chulin, then you chayiv asham me'ilois vadai.